You subscribe, right flowers, now, or me bash you with rock.
Hey guys, it's me, Rat Flowers, the greatest Huntress simp you know. Dead by Daylight has a lot of worthless killer perks, some being so worthless that they will never find their way into anyone's builds unless they're playing Chaos Shuffle. Here's how I would change playing each of the most, in my opinion, worthless perks in Dead by Daylight. Dying Light, aka Cold a Week, a general perk previously only obtainable from the now unpurchasable shape, gives you a token every time you hook a survivor that is not your obsession. For each token, survivors do repairs, heals, and sabotages 3% slower. However, the trade-off is that not only is the obsession themselves not affected by this penalty, they also get a free 33% boost to unhooking and healing. The big thing that makes this perk bad should be fairly obvious. Giving your obsession a massive free healing boost off rip is giving the survivors a huge advantage. And the fact that the obsession is unaffected by Dying Light is just plain insult to injury. The only two killers that DL consistently works on are Legion and Plague. Legion because their power can constantly injure survivors to the point that healing it just isn't worth it, and Plague because maximum infection makes survivors broken and injured until they cleanse. The design of this perk also isn't healthy at all, as it encourages tunneling out your obsession once you feel like you have enough tokens, which is 4 tokens in my opinion. To rework Dying Light into consistent usability, first remove the buffs that the obsession receives, while still granting them immunity from Dying Light's effect. Then, make it so that you actually gain tokens when hooking an obsession and not non-obsession, instead of the other way around. Then, make it so that when you down a non-obsession survivor, they become the obsession, and when you down a survivor that is already your obsession, obsession status transfers to a different random survivor. Obsession. This gives the perk consistent usability, while disincentivizing tunneling. Bloodhound, a perk from the Wraith, makes pools of blood from damaged survivors a very bright red and extends the time before they disappear to by 4 seconds. This perk's effect is okay, but not very useful in comparison to a lot of other information perks. Pools of blood are already pretty visible across most surfaces, and already last decently long. Even in environments where they're difficult to see, you can hear the breathing and growing that injured survivors give off, so yeah. I honestly think this perk's glowing blood effect is better as an accessibility option than a perk effect, so my first change would be to remove the glowing blood effect, but add it to the accessibility settings for those who have issues seeing in dark environments, and also add a color customization for the blood for people who are colorblind or content creators that are worried about demonetization. Therefore, I'd rework the perk entirely. This new rendition, instead of extending pools of blood for 4 seconds, will reveal the aura of a survivor for 6 seconds whenever they take damage by any means. It's basically the Huntress's glowing concoction, but in perk form. I made it 1 second longer because the M1 cooldown is a bit longer than a hatchet throw cooldown, but yeah. This perk wouldn't at all be a nightmare to deal with against Nurse either, since she has to deal with a long-ass fatigue whenever she hits a survivor with a blink attack, so it'd only be fully visible to her for like a second or two, at most. Territorial Imperative, a perk from my bunny mama bear, the Huntress, reveals the aura of any survivor that enters the basement for 6 seconds, whenever you are 24 meters away from it, with this effect having a cooldown of 45 seconds. This perk is worthless in the sense that it only gives you info in one very specific part of the map, a part that survivors typically won't be going into unless they have specific perks like Wicked. They're looking for chests, or they won't be going to the basement unless they have specific perks, they're looking for chests, or they're trying to rescue a survivor you have hooked there. When this perk activates while you have a survivor hooked in the basement, you're likely not going to get there in time to interrupt the power, to interrupt the save, unless you're on a killer with high mobility power, such as Blight or Ghoul. The long cooldown is just another layer of clunkiness that renders this perk a nothing burger. There's no real way to buff this perk's current effect meaningfully without making it extremely unhealthy for the game at large, so let's give it a complete rework. The new effect would make it so that whenever you down a survivor, all upright pallets within 36 meters of the downed survivor's current location will reveal the auras of all other survivors within 10 meters of those pallets for 6 seconds, this effect having a cooldown of 20 seconds. This would turn the perk into an info perk that directly counters flashlight and pallet saves, making its effect significantly more healthy and versatile. Its power would also balance itself out, since it only affects upright pallets, therefore becoming less effective as pallets get used. No Quarter, a perk from the Houndmaster, triggers when a survivor healing themselves reaches 75% progress. It will hit that survivor with a barrage of skill checks, similar to Merciless Storm, and if any of the skill checks are missed, the survivor will become broken and unable to be healed by any means for 30 seconds. This perk is extremely specific and situational. Not many survivors are going to be spending time healing themselves unless they have a medkit, and most of the time will have others heal them, especially if they have Bond or if others have botany knowledge or will make it. To make this perk more useful, simply make it apply on altruistic heals in addition to self-heals. Its skill check barrage would only be for 4 seconds on altruistic heals, since those take 16 seconds under normal circumstances, so it'd be balanced out well, though still scary to encounter, and enhanceable by things that affect skill checks or healing speeds. Also make it so that it reveals the healing recipient's aura for 8 seconds, in addition to broken penalty when a skill check is failed, to make sure the effect isn't too oppressive. To make it so the effect isn't too oppressive, make sure that it can only trigger successfully once per injured state. Sorry. Insidious, a general perk, makes it so that you become undetectable whenever you stand still, doing nothing for 1 second, and the effect ends when you move again. This perk is worthless outside of proximity camping in the endgame with a rapid damage output or insta-down killer like Cannibal/Bubba. This perk should be reworked completely to have a new effect where you are undetectable for 20 seconds at the start of a trial, and additionally, for the entirety of the trial, all timed undetectable status effects are extended by 10 seconds. Distressing, another general perk, simply expands your terror radius by 30%. This perk's effectiveness can be wildly inconsistent, mostly leaning on the side of detrimental. It can make survivors more hyper-vigilant, sure, but it also makes them more likely to run away prematurely, especially if you're on a higher mobility killer. To rework this perk, make it, instead, shrink your terror radius by 15%, which isn't that crazy of an amount, but still, a difference. Haywire, a perk from the animatronic, causes exit gates to regress at the same speed as they progress whenever they're at 80% plus progress, not being touched by anyone. This perk's effect is quite inconsequential under most circumstances, with the only thing it really consistently counters being 99ing exit gates, which is a bad idea for survivors under most circumstances anyway. To make this perk more useful, add an additional effect to it. This effect should be that whenever an exit gate is touched for the first time, the killer hears an audio cue, and the survivor that touched it will have their aura revealed for 4 seconds, and will get afflicted with 7% hindered and oblivious for 20 seconds. This would affect the switches individually, so this effect would trigger only twice per match. Still, balances itself out. This new effect would be thematically appropriate, since electricity contracts the muscles, thus making you slower. Shadowborn, a perk from the Wraith, gives 10% haste for 10 seconds whenever you are blinded by any means. This perk gets its functionality hampered by 2 main factors. One, you are still blinded for a portion of the duration, so it's harder to capitalize on the haste. 2, blinds usually happen when you're stunned or when getting a survivor saved from your grasp. Both of these combined with the fact that not every survivor uses flashlights or other blinding stuff. To change the perk, rework it to now reveal the aura of any survivor you start a chase with for 4 seconds, with this effect having a cooldown of 40 seconds. Basically, the opposite of Wraith's other perk, named Predator. Undone, a perk from the Unknown, gets 3 tokens each time a survivor fails a repair skill check, up to a max of 30. When you kick a generator, all tokens get consumed, and for each token, the generator loses 1% progress, in addition to the 5% that you already get from kicking gens normally, and is also blocked for 1 second, so a max of 30% and 30 seconds for both. This has a cooldown of 60 seconds. This perk, against at least semi-competent survivors, it's useless. Good survivors hardly ever miss skill checks, and when they do, it's usually because of other factors, like playing against the doctor, or due to a sudden skill check popping off right as they think about getting off the generator, or go to scratch their nose. To make this perk actually useful, give it the ability to gain 1 token whenever a survivor hits a great skill check. This would add more consistency to the power. With the 3 tokens on missed skill checks would still be there, so the synergy with skill check perks would be preserved. Although it may get a little weird with perks that make it harder to, like, hit greats, because, like, if survivors are still good at hitting those kinds of skill checks, then it won't do shit. I don't fucking know. Also, maybe shrink the cooldown to 45 seconds. And also, if you're concerned about the token gain on great skill checks making Undone too oppressive, you could probably get away with having the perk not gain tokens until it's on cooldown. And while I'm at it, just have it work on, like, special skill checks, like the skill checks from Oppression and Overcharge and stuff like that. Just, yeah, that's about it. Shattered Hope, a general perk and probably the worst killer perk in the game, breaks a totem whenever you snuff a boon off of it, and reveals the auras of all survivors within that boon's effective radius for 8 seconds when you break it. This perk is 100% situational and flat out is not worth the perk slot. All of the current existing boons are typically B tier, unless the survivors are good at using them, like, effectively to their full effectiveness. So, this perk's existence just matters at all. This perk actually came out at a time where boon Circle of Healing actually was insane. What it used to do, was it gave survivors the altruistic healing speed bonus that it does now, but it also allowed them to self-heal at 50% of the normal healing speed. So, yeah, it was kinda dumb. But now, this perk just doesn't have a reason to exist. It's not like killer exhausting perks like Mindbreaker, Languid Touch, or Genetic Limits, where exhaustion perks are pretty damn common because they're all super duper good in their own right. But with boons these days, it's just not really necessary at all in any situation. To start with reworking this perk, first, make the effect of the totem breaking on boon snuffing base kit. Then, to rework the perk entirely and make it an actual hex perk. First, whenever the killer breaks a pallet, breakable wall, or generator, while the totem for Shattered Hope is active, all survivors within 32 meters become exhausted for 40 seconds. Additionally, when a survivor is exhausted, they will also have the Oblivious status effect for as long as they are exhausted. This keeps the name of the perk thematically appropriate, while also making the perk actually usable. And, yeah, the name Shattered Hope, thematically appropriate, because survivors, they get exhausted from their hope being shattered, and they're so hopeless that they're oblivious to you coming to them. You see what I mean? See myself out. So, those are my thoughts on how to change the worst of the worst killer perks in Dead by Daylight. If you want, go ahead and like the video and comment your thoughts down below. If you want to see me do a video on proposing changes to the most awful survivor perks, let me know in the comments as well. If you want to keep up with uploads, subscribe. Additionally, go ahead and follow my other socials shown in the description and outro. If something were to happen to this channel, that's probably the only way you know. I've been Flowers, and in conclusion, Please get the fuck out of Exhaustion speed boost perks, please, for the love of God.
Don't like this video. Did you just like it? You better not comment. You don't listen very well, do you? Did you just share it?